Hi folks, HR Funk here. Out on the range for part 2 of my video review of this Winchester Model 1873 rifle. In part 1 of this video, I conducted a detailed shop review of this rifle. And in that shop review, I talked about some of the history of the 1873 to include the fact that it was originally chambered for, and actually all the way through its production, chambered for handgun cartridges of the time, allowing those riflemen back in the day to use the same cartridge for their rifle and their handgun. So in part 2 of this video, I'm going to be shooting the 1873 rifle, and I thought it would be fun to start things off with a chronograph comparison between the velocities I get from the 24-inch barrel of the 1873 and another 1873 design, albeit a clone in this case from Cimarron, that being the famous Colt Peacemaker. This revolver has a 5.5-inch barrel, and they're both chambered for 357 Magnum cartridges. Now, the 357 Magnum didn't come along until several years after the 1873 Winchester rifle ceased production, but the 38 Special cartridge was in production from about the midway point of production of the 1873 on. So I'm going to start things off, and I'm only going to fire a few rounds with each firearm to see how much difference there is in velocity and how much of a ballistic advantage those riflemen back in the day might have been getting by using their rifle. But I'll fire about 3 rounds of 38 Special ammunition from the rifle, 3 rounds of 38 Special ammunition from the handgun, and look at the velocities. And before it's all done, I'll do the same thing with the 357 Magnum cartridge, even though historically that's not quite correct. Even so, I think it might be fun. But I'm not going to overdo the chronographing because I think that can get kind of boring and tedious after a while. In any case, here we go. And here we go with the chronograph test, folks. I have the chronograph set up 10 feet in front of me, and I'm going to kick things off with the revolver. I have 2 different types of 38 Special ammunition that I'm going to be testing. The first one is the old military load. This features a 130 grain metal case bullet, and these are not known for being particularly powerful, but it's probably a pretty close approximation of those original 38 Special cartridges that would have been issued back around the time that cartridge was brand new. The second one is a hand load, and this features a 158 grain lead hollow point, and this is loaded up over a charge of Universal. This should give me plus P velocities right around 900 feet or so out of this revolver, but we'll see. And after I test these cartridges through the revolver, I'll switch over for the rifle. After each one, I'll test this one through the handgun, then I'll test it with the rifle. Next, I'll switch back and test the second cartridge with the handgun, then I'll test the second cartridge with the rifle. As I said in the opening, I'm only going to fire about 3 shots or so of each of these, just enough to get an idea of what the average velocity is. And by the time you see this, I will have figured out the average velocities and the average energy for these cartridges. It'll flash up on the screen, so you'll know what it is before I do. In any case, let's get started. I'm going to load up 3 rounds of this ammunition in the revolver, and we'll see what kind of velocities we can get. All right, I'll calculate the average. That'll flash up on the screen, and after that, I'll be back with the rifle. So now, let's see how much difference we get in velocity with that 130 grain military load out of the 24-inch rifle barrel. Looks like quite a bit of difference. And last shot. All right, I'll calculate the averages and then come back and try the revolver with my second load. And here we go with the hand load of the revolver. Again, this is a 158 grain lead hollow point over a charge of universal. Let's see what the velocity looks like from this. Definitely feels a little more stout than that factory loading. And from what I can see of the numbers, it's definitely more stout. One more time, you're about to see the averages for both muzzle velocity and energy from this revolver with that load. When we come back, I'll be set up with the rifle. And last but certainly not least, 3 rounds of my 38 special hand load from the rifle. Again, this is a 158 grain lead hollow point. Let's see how it does. Again, it definitely feels more stout. All right, let's calculate all that for our final 38 special load. Then we'll try a couple of 357 Magnums. And on we go to the 357 Magnum. This is going to be 3 rounds. Again, I'm starting off with a factory load of 125 grain Freedom Munitions 357 Magnum ammunition. Let's see how this does. I'd say it's a little more potent. There we go. There's 3 rounds through the revolver. I'll calculate the averages, and then we'll take a look at how the rifle does with that load. And now we'll get a look at that 158 grain Freedom Munitions 357 Magnum load from the 1873 Winchester. And that felt very mild after shooting that load out of the revolver. Still, it's clocking, I can't quite see, there's a glare on the chronograph, 1,500 and I think 73 feet per second. So good stout load out of this rifle. And here goes number 3. All right, I'm going to do some math, then we'll come back and try our second load in the revolver. Last test load out of the revolver, folks. And this load, it features a 158 grain lead semi-wad cutter over a fairly stout charge of 2400. Let's see what the velocities look like from this. Definitely feels like a stout load. And one more. That's 3. Let me calculate the averages, then we'll take a look at that load out of the rifle. Last chronograph test, folks, and after the way this load bucked out of the wheel gun, I'll be interested to see what the recoil feels like out of the rifle. Definitely a little more stout than that factory load. And there we go. I'll calculate those final numbers, and I think it's safe to say that even though I'm using modern ammunition for this test, based on what I'm seeing on the chronograph, even those old-time cartridges from the 1800s would have gotten a significant ballistic boost out of the 24-inch barrel, or at least the rifle-length barrel of the 1873 Winchester, as opposed to whatever handgun those old-timers might have been carrying. So depending upon exactly which cartridge we're discussing, out of this rifle-length barrel, those bullets were picking up between 300 and about 540 feet per second. So as I said, a fairly significant change ballistically in favor of the rifle. Now let's see what kind of accuracy this rifle is capable of. I've got it loaded up again with 3 rounds of that 130 grain metal case 38 special ammunition, and I'm set up at a distance of 25 yards because I haven't put this rifle on paper yet, so I'm not sure exactly where it's going to hit. So I'm going to start out here, and then eventually we'll move on to greater distances. Okay, let's go see how those 3 look. And I'm glad I started out at 25 yards because although the group size isn't too bad, I am hitting off to the right. And I was not noticing that rear sight being to the right when I was looking at it, but I'll try the next load, and if I'm still hitting off to the right, then I'll probably drift that a little bit to the left to try to compensate for that. So let's go back now and try that 158 grain lead hollow point 38 special load. So let's try 3 rounds of this 38 special hand load, and we'll see where they print. And it looks like they're going to the exact same place. Yeah, I can see the group from here. Looks like it went to the same place as the last one. And looks like another fairly decent group. That's about 3/4 of an inch, so it's a little bit tighter than the factory load that I was using. That would be about 3 minutes of angle if I took the time to measure it. But again, I'm hitting off to the right, so I'm going to have to give that rear sight some attention before I move on and try the accuracy test with their 357 Magnum loads. And after giving that rear sight an attitude adjustment, my last 2 shots are right here, so I think windage-wise, I'm pretty well zeroed. So now let's move on, and we'll see where the 357 Magnum ammunition prints. So on we go with 3 rounds from 25 yards of the Freedom Munitions 357 Magnums. Let's see how they do now. So let's go have a look. Wow, there was definitely a point of impact shift with that 357 Magnum ammunition, but that is a fantastic group from a lever action rifle. And this is measuring about 3/8 of an inch center to center. So that's about 1.5 MOA. That is outstanding. And I'm actually kind of surprised by that. Obviously, I would need to adjust the rear sight down a little bit, which is no big deal, but that's tremendous accuracy. Let's see how the hand load does with the 158 grain semi-wide cutter. So after that last test, I did lower the rear sight some. So let's see how my 357 Magnum hand load does. Let's go see where those hit. That group definitely opened up a little bit. The elevation obviously is much closer to point of aim, and I'm wondering if this might have been me. I'm going to try a couple of more shots with that ammunition from this distance of 25 yards and just see what the resulting group looks like. And I'm going to try 2 more shots from this distance of 25 yards to turn this into a 5-shot group just to see how that looks. All right, let's see what we got now. So my conclusion at this point is that rifle really likes that Freedom munition load, and it really doesn't like my hand load, which maybe that doesn't surprise me. This was developed for a handgun, so maybe just out of that rifle it doesn't like it. In any case, let's go on and try something else. All right, folks, now we got a different challenge for the 1873 Winchester. I can see a bad guy out there on the range at 100 yards. I've got 3 rounds of that Freedom Munition ammunition loaded up in the rifle, which is the ammunition that the rifle seemed to most favor accuracy-wise. So I'm going to see if I can rain on that bad guy's parade. Now, this ammunition was hitting slightly off to the left, so I'm going to favor the left side, which is my right as I'm looking, of the bad guy and hold about center chest, because with the velocity that I'm getting with this load, I don't expect a lot of drop. Well, let's find out. All right, let's go down range and see if our bad guy got the message. So as it turns out, I did get a little bit of drop from that distance of 100 yards, but I've got 1 shot dead center in the heart. I'll have to play back the video and see which one this is. 1 shot that's just below the lungs here, and one of them that clipped his spine. So I think our bad guy is still going to be hating life right about now, assuming he still has a life to hate. In any case, I'm not too upset with that, firing with those semi-buckhorn sights from a distance of 100 yards. Obviously, my elevation is varying a little bit, but still, I'm pretty happy. All right, folks, let's move up and speed up some, and we'll try some more close-in defensive drills with the 1873 Winchester. And I'll start off with 3 shots to the body from a distance of 15 yards. Then I'll move on to a failure drill from that same distance. Think we got his attention. And on we go to a failure drill from this distance of 15 yards. By the way, I'm occasionally asked why this is called a failure drill. It's because it's simulating a situation where 2 shots to the body fail to stop the bad guy, so the defensive shooter has to transition to the head and try to eliminate the threat that way. So here we go. Got a little carried away with that second shot, but I think the headshot should have solved the problem. And I just realized I neglected to put my glasses on before I shot those last 2 drills, which was a mistake on my part. I didn't mean to shoot them that way, but I've now rectified the problem, and that also explains why the front sight looked a little bit fuzzy when I was shooting. So now I'm going to back off to 25 yards, and I'll try some headshots from that distance. And here we go, 3 headshots from 25 yards. Let's see what happens here. And yes, that front sight is clearer. I'll take that. Well, folks, the way I see it, there's only one thing left as far as a challenge for the 1873 Winchester, and that's to find out if it's a 7-yard tack driver. So I've got 3 rounds loaded into the magazine. I've got a tack in the target. Let's find out. So here we go, folks. Let's see what we can do. Oh! Just off to the left with that first shot. Let's see if I can straighten things out on shot number 2. Ah! Got one last shot to find out if the 1873 Winchester is a tack driver. Yes! On the third and final shot, the gun that won the West is a 7-yard tack driver. Folks, one last thing before I leave the target here. I'm not feeling too bad about that standing 3-shot group with semi-buckhorn sights that is in 1/4 of an inch center to center. So not feeling bad about that at all. So final thoughts on the 1873 Winchester, folks. This is a fun rifle to shoot. It's historic, it's accurate, it's very reliable. The ammunition I had out here today had 4 very different types of bullet profiles, and none of them gave it any problem. It functioned flawlessly all the way through the test, and it's just a tremendous rifle. It is just as capable of defending home and hearth today as it was 150 years ago when it was first introduced. And also, if you were going to be inclined to take this rifle hunting, chambered in the .357 Magnum cartridge with the right loads, it would be good for anything up to deer size game. I've certainly seen people take deer with .357 Magnums chambered for a handgun, or chambered in a handgun rather. So it's just a great rifle. It was a lot of fun to do this review. And I want to say thanks again to House of Pain Armament for loaning me the gun that won the West. This review would not have been possible without their assistance, so thank you to them, and thanks to all of you for watching. And that's going to do it for this video, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 7% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also, remember the discount code from Hot Munitions and House of Pain Armament. If you go to House of Pain, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFUNK10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from House of Pain. Last but not least is the Target sponsor for the channel. Go to Target's online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. See you next time, folks. Until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.